You're standing in line at airport security, coffee in hand, boarding pass ready. Everything seems normal, but what you don't see is the person 3 spots behind you. They're not just another traveler, they're studying you, cataloging your habits, and deciding whether you're worth their time. Airport theft isn't random, it's calculated, methodical, and happening right under your nose. Professional thieves don't just grab and run, they hunt for specific types of victims using techniques most travelers never see coming. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the 7 warning signs that make airport thieves zero in on their next target. More importantly, you'll learn exactly how to avoid becoming one of them. Because once you understand how these criminals think, you'll never travel the same way again. Airport crime is surging in 2025, and it's not just pickpocketing anymore. According to recent TSA incident reports, theft-related crimes at major U.S. airports have increased by 23% compared to last year. Los Angeles International Airport alone reported over 400 theft incidents in the first quarter of 2025, with victims losing everything from laptops to entire suitcases. But here's what law enforcement won't tell you. These aren't crimes of opportunity. They're carefully orchestrated operations where thieves spend minutes, sometimes hours, profiling potential victims before making their move. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on exactly how airport thieves operate. We'll break down their victim selection process, reveal the psychological tricks they use, and most importantly, show you how to make yourself an unattractive target. This isn't about being paranoid. It's about being prepared. Because in today's airports, the difference between a smooth trip and a travel nightmare often comes down to understanding how criminals think. 1. The distracted device user. The first type of victim airport thieves love is what security experts call the distracted device user. These are travelers who become so absorbed in their phones, tablets, or laptops that they lose awareness of their surroundings. Picture this scenario. A businessman sits at gate B12, laptop open, phone charging beside him, completely engrossed in a video conference call. His carry-on bag sits unzipped at his feet, wallet visible in the side pocket. To a professional thief, this man might as well be wearing a neon sign that says "Easy Target." According to former TSA agent Marcus Rodriguez, who now works as a security consultant, thieves specifically look for what he calls tunnel vision travelers. These are people who create a bubble around themselves with technology, essentially advertising their valuables while simultaneously broadcasting their inattention. The technique is simple but effective. A thief will position themselves nearby, often pretending to be on their own phone or reading. They'll observe the target's patterns. When they look up, how often they check their belongings, whether they're using headphones that block out ambient sound. Once they've established the target's rhythm, they strike during a moment of peak distraction. One documented case from Denver International Airport involved a software engineer who lost his entire laptop bag while on a client call. Security footage showed the thief observing him for nearly 20 minutes before casually walking by and lifting the bag. The victim didn't notice for another 10 minutes, by which time the thief had already left the secure area. The psychology behind this is straightforward. When people are focused on screens, their peripheral awareness drops dramatically. Thieves exploit this by timing their approach during moments of intense concentration, such as when someone is typing rapidly, watching a video, or engaged in a phone conversation. What makes these victims particularly attractive is their tendency to have multiple valuable items visible simultaneously. The distracted device user often has their phone, laptop, tablet, and charging cables all spread out, creating what thieves call a buffet situation. Multiple high-value targets in one location. 2. The obvious tourist. The second victim type that draws thieves like magnets is the obvious tourist. These travelers practically announce their unfamiliarity with airport procedures and local customs, making them prime targets for various scams and theft techniques. Airport thieves can spot tourists from across a terminal. They look for specific behavioral markers, people who stop frequently to check signs, appear confused by basic procedures, or constantly reference guidebooks and maps on their phones. But it goes deeper than just looking lost. Tourists often make critical mistakes that experienced travelers avoid. They tend to overpack their carry-ons with souvenirs and gifts, creating bulky, unwieldy bags that are difficult to keep track of. They frequently wear expensive jewelry or clothing that screams, "I have money to spend." Most importantly, they often carry large amounts of cash and have their passports easily accessible, sometimes even visible in shirt pockets or hanging around their necks. Security expert Jennifer Walsh, who has studied airport crime patterns for over a decade, explains that tourists are targeted because they're operating outside their comfort zone. When people are in unfamiliar environments, their decision-making becomes impaired, Walsh notes. They're more likely to trust strangers, less likely to question unusual requests, and more focused on navigation than security. A common scenario involves what's known as the helpful stranger scam. A thief approaches a confused-looking tourist and offers assistance, perhaps helping them understand a boarding announcement or directing them to their gate. During this interaction, an accomplice moves in to steal unattended luggage or pickpocket the distracted victim. One particularly effective technique targets tourists at baggage claim. Thieves watch for people who are clearly unfamiliar with the airport layout, then approach them claiming to be airport employees or fellow travelers. While engaging the tourist in conversation, they either directly steal luggage or gather information about the tourist's travel plans and accommodations for later theft. The key vulnerability here is trust. Tourists, especially those from smaller communities or countries with lower crime rates, often maintain a level of openness and trust that makes them easy marks in high-crime environments like busy airports. 3. The exhausted traveler. Fatigue is a thief's best friend, and exhausted travelers represent some of the easiest targets in any airport. Long flights, jet lag, early morning departures, and the general stress of travel create a perfect storm of vulnerability that professional thieves know how to exploit. Sleep-deprived travelers exhibit predictable behaviors that make them attractive targets. Their reaction times slow down, their awareness of surroundings diminishes, and their ability to make quick decisions becomes impaired. Most critically, exhausted travelers are more likely to let their guard down and trust their environment. Dr. Sarah Chen, a behavioral psychologist who has studied travel-related crime, explains that fatigue affects the brain's threat detection systems. When we're tired, the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for executive decision-making and threat assessment, doesn't function at full capacity, Dr. Chen notes. This makes tired travelers significantly more vulnerable to theft and scams. Airport thieves specifically target red-eye flight passengers and those dealing with significant time zone changes. They position themselves in areas where tired travelers congregate, near charging stations, in quiet gate areas, and especially in airport lounges where people often fall asleep. The most common technique involves what security professionals call the nap attack. Thieves wait for exhausted travelers to doze off in their seats, then quietly remove items from nearby bags or pockets. Because the victim is asleep, the theft often goes unnoticed for hours, giving the criminal plenty of time to escape. A documented case from Chicago O'Hare involved a business traveler who fell asleep during a lengthy layover. Security cameras captured a thief spending nearly 5 minutes carefully going through the man's carry-on bag, removing a laptop, tablet, and wallet before calmly walking away. The victim didn't wake up until his boarding announcement, by which time the thief was long gone. Exhausted travelers also become victims of more sophisticated scams. Their impaired judgment makes them more likely to fall for fake airport employee schemes, bogus security checks, or requests for assistance that are actually setups for theft. The flashy spender. Nothing attracts airport thieves quite like obvious displays of wealth, and the flashy spender is essentially advertising themselves as a high-value target. These travelers make the critical mistake of showcasing expensive items, large amounts of cash, or luxury goods in highly visible ways. The flashy spender typically exhibits several telltale behaviors that thieves look for. They pull out thick wads of cash when making purchases, wear expensive jewelry or watches, carry designer luggage with visible brand logos, and often discuss expensive travel plans or purchases within earshot of strangers. According to retired FBI agent Robert Martinez, who specialized in airport crimes, thieves specifically scout for what he calls wealth signals. These include designer clothing, expensive electronics, luxury luggage, And most importantly, the casual display of large amounts of cash or high-end credit cards. Professional airport thieves are essentially conducting market research, Martinez explains. They're looking for the highest return on investment with the lowest risk. Someone flashing a Rolex and pulling hundreds out of a Louis Vuitton wallet represents a much more attractive target than someone with a basic watch and a worn backpack. The psychology behind targeting flashy spenders goes beyond just the value of their possessions. These individuals often have what psychologists call wealth confidence. They are less likely to be suspicious of approaches from strangers because they're accustomed to receiving attention and service. This makes them more susceptible to social engineering tactics. A common technique involves the accidental bump at duty-free shops or expensive airport restaurants. A thief will deliberately bump into a flashy spender who's making a large purchase, apologize profusely, and during the confusion, either pickpocket the victim or note their payment methods and personal information for later use. One particularly sophisticated operation at Miami International Airport targeted wealthy international travelers. Thieves would observe passengers making expensive purchases at luxury stores, then follow them to identify their gate and seat assignments. During the flight, accomplices working as baggage handlers would target the victim's checked luggage, knowing it likely contained valuable items. The solo female traveler. Unfortunately, women traveling alone face unique security challenges and are often specifically targeted by airport thieves who perceive them as easier victims. This targeting is based on outdated and sexist assumptions, but understanding these criminal thought patterns is crucial for prevention. Airport thieves often assume solo female travelers are less likely to confront them physically, more likely to be carrying valuable personal items like jewelry and electronics, and potentially more trusting of approaches from strangers offering help. These assumptions, while often incorrect, drive targeting decisions. Security consultant Lisa Thompson, who specializes in travel safety for women, explains that female travelers face what she calls predatory profiling. Thieves look for women who appear uncertain, are traveling with expensive luggage or electronics, or seem overwhelmed by airport procedures. The targeting isn't just about perceived physical vulnerability, Thompson notes. Thieves also assume women are more likely to be carrying items like expensive purses, jewelry, or electronics in easily accessible locations. They also believe women are more likely to accept help from strangers, which creates opportunities for distraction-based theft. Common techniques used against solo female travelers include the gallant helper approach, where a male thief offers assistance with heavy luggage while an accomplice steals from unattended bags. Another frequent scam involves fake airport employees who claim there's a problem with the traveler's documentation or luggage, leading them away from their belongings. One documented pattern involves thieves targeting women at airport bars and restaurants. They'll strike up conversations, offer to buy drinks, and during the social interaction, either directly steal items or gather information about travel plans and accommodations for later crimes. The bathroom vulnerability is particularly significant for solo female travelers. Unlike men, who can often keep their luggage with them in restrooms, women frequently must leave bags outside stalls or in areas where they can't maintain visual contact. Thieves specifically target these situations. 6. The business traveler with patterns. Frequent business travelers might think their experience makes them less vulnerable to airport theft. But professional thieves actually prize these targets for their predictability and the high value of their typical possessions. Business travelers often fall into rigid routines that make them easy to profile and target. They tend to use the same airlines, sit in the same areas of airports, follow identical pre-flight rituals, and carry similar high-value items like laptops, tablets, and expensive business accessories. Former airport security director Michael Chang explains that business travelers create what he calls pattern vulnerabilities. Their predictable behaviors make it easy for thieves to anticipate their movements and plan thefts accordingly. A business traveler who takes the same 6 a.m. flight every Tuesday, sits in the same coffee shop, and follows the same routine becomes incredibly easy to target, Chang notes. Thieves can literally set their watches by these travelers' habits. The high-value nature of business travelers' possessions makes them particularly attractive targets. They typically carry expensive laptops, tablets, smartphones, and often have company credit cards or significant amounts of cash for business expenses. Their luggage often contains important documents, contracts, and other materials that could be valuable for identity theft or corporate espionage. One sophisticated operation at Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport specifically targeted weekly business commuters. Thieves would observe the same travelers over multiple weeks, learning their routines and identifying the most vulnerable moments in their travel patterns. They would then time thefts to occur during predictable distraction periods, such as when the traveler was making their usual coffee purchase or phone call. Business travelers also face unique risks related to their professional obligations. They're often on important calls or dealing with work emergencies that create tunnel vision, making them oblivious to their surroundings. Thieves exploit these moments of intense professional focus. 7. The elderly or mobility-impaired traveler. Perhaps the most troubling category of airport theft victims includes elderly travelers and those with mobility impairments. These individuals are targeted not just for their perceived vulnerability, but because their travel needs often create security gaps that thieves can exploit. Elderly travelers and those with mobility challenges face several unique vulnerabilities. They often need assistance with luggage, may have slower reaction times, and frequently travel with medical equipment or medications that can be valuable on the black market. Most importantly, they may be less able to physically pursue a thief or quickly report a crime. Gerontology expert Dr. Patricia Williams, who has studied crime against elderly travelers, explains that thieves specifically look for what she calls assistance opportunities. These are situations where an elderly or disabled traveler needs help, creating natural openings for criminals to approach and gain trust. Thieves will often pose as good Samaritans, offering to help with luggage or navigation, Dr. Williams explains. During these interactions, they're either directly stealing items or gathering information about the traveler's capabilities and possessions for later theft. Common techniques include the helpful porter scam, where thieves offer to help with luggage and then simply walk away with it. Another frequent approach involves fake airport employees who claim to need to inspect medical equipment or medications, then steal items during the fake inspection. Elderly travelers are also targeted for their tendency to carry cash rather than relying solely on credit cards. Many older Americans still prefer cash transactions and may carry significant amounts, making them attractive targets for pickpockets and purse snatchers. The mobility equipment itself can create vulnerabilities. Wheelchairs, walkers, and other assistive devices can make it difficult to keep personal belongings secure and within sight. Thieves specifically target these situations, knowing that the traveler's mobility limitations make pursuit unlikely. One particularly cruel scheme documented at several major airports involves thieves who target elderly travelers at baggage claim. They approach with offers to help retrieve heavy luggage, then either steal the luggage outright or use the interaction to pickpocket the victim while they're focused on the baggage carousel. Protection strategies. Now that we've identified how thieves select their victims, let's discuss practical protection strategies that any traveler can implement immediately. First, maintain situational awareness at all times. This means regularly scanning your environment, making eye contact with people around you, and trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. Thieves prefer victims who seem oblivious to their surroundings. Second, minimize the display of valuable items. Keep expensive electronics in plain, unmarked bags. Avoid wearing expensive jewelry or clothing with obvious designer labels. When making purchases, use credit cards instead of cash, and never display large amounts of money. Third, secure your belongings properly. Use bags with zippers that can be locked or secured. Keep important documents and valuables in inside pockets or money belts. Never leave bags unattended, even for a few seconds. Fourth, be cautious of unsolicited help. While many airport interactions are genuine, be wary of strangers who approach offering assistance, especially if they seem overly interested in your belongings or travel plans. Finally, stay alert when tired. If you must rest in an airport, choose well-lit, busy areas and consider using your luggage as a pillow. or keeping it physically connected to your body. Airport thieves aren't just opportunistic criminals, they're skilled predators who use psychology, observation, and timing to select their victims. By understanding their methods, you can avoid becoming their next target. Remember, the goal isn't to become paranoid about travel, but to travel smart. Simple awareness and basic precautions can dramatically reduce your risk of becoming a victim of airport crime. The 7 victim types we've discussed today: the distracted device user, the obvious tourist, the exhausted traveler, the flashy spender, the solo female traveler, the predictable business traveler, and the elderly or mobility-impaired traveler, all share common vulnerabilities that thieves exploit.